Right to be Read podcast, episode number 26, From Day Job to Dream Job. Interview with Kary, Oberbrunner.
You are listening to the Right to be Read podcast, and this is your host, Ani Alexander.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Right to be Read podcast, the podcast that inspires and encourages writers. Today, I'm interviewing a very special person because just a few days ago, he launched his book, Day Job to Dream Job. And although I don't read nonfiction books often, I already read the book because I couldn't skip that title, and the book is amazing. So whoever doesn't know who Kary is, Kary Oberbrunner left his day job to pursue his dream job, and through his writing, speaking, and coaching, he helps individuals and organizations clarify who they are, why they are here, and where they should invest their time and energy. So I'm really happy to welcome Kary over to the show, and thank you very much for coming.
Hey, it's great to be here, Annie. Thank you.
Well, Kary, as I already said, I read your book. I'm one of those who's on her journey of doing what you wrote in the book. And I think most of the writers would love to pursue their passion and leave their day jobs, which kind of kill their creativity partly.
Sure.
So I wanted just to find out, as I said, many would like to leave their day jobs because most of them don't really love it that much, and they would love to pursue their passion and write books instead. But as you know, there are many barriers to that. And since you already managed to overcome those, can you tell your personal journey? How did you manage to make this big step and change everything for yourself?
Yeah. Well, I think the great thing, Annie, is that people feel this desire, which is the first step. Because I say it like this. I say, dead people feel nothing. So the fact that they have this desire, first of all, is a very good sign. It means that they haven't died yet. They aren't fully institutionalized. So celebrate that, first of all. The second thing, though, is that everyone who wants to go from day job to dream job, they really need a plan. And I get it that some people say, well, I'm just going to go in and quit my job tomorrow and tell my boss I'm done. But the reality is that unless they have their mom and dad's basement or some relative or something like that to live in, they really haven't solved the problem. See, I believe that we get our dream job when we become the person worthy of our dream job. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
So I know you guys have the Olympics, we have the Olympics, and nobody gets an Olympic gold medal just because they show up. Mm-hmm. They get an Olympic gold medal only when they become worthy of the gold medal. And I'll give you an example. Right now on eBay, do you guys have eBay?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right now on eBay, you can go buy a gold medal, a real gold medal for $19,000. And the truth is that gold medal is going to mean nothing because you didn't have to do anything to get it besides pay a fee. And many times people say, well, if I just had money, then I could do my dream job. And the reality is that we need dream jobbers to become people that are worthy of their dream job, that have become confident, they become clear, they become influential, they know their message, they become good at what they do. That's when you get your dream job. So many people want to shortcut the process, just like buying an exercise membership. They might say, well, if I want to get buff, I'll just buy a membership. You don't get to be buff by buying a piece of paper. You only do it by doing the work. And so, Annie, probably 4 years ago, I was in my day job, and I knew that there were parts of it that were good. I'm a father of 3. I have a great wife, and I had health insurance, benefits, salary. I had all that safety and security. But I knew that I was letting part of myself die every year. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it sounds so familiar.
Like, your heart's partially in it, but at the end of the day, you still would do things differently, but yet you take a little bit more of that chronic pain. And it's interesting because 4 years ago, I got called into my director's office, and he said something interesting. He said, I want you to get promoted. And I said, promoted? What do you mean? He said, well, our senior leader's getting older. He's not ready to retire. He's probably got 10 years left in him, but we want to appoint you as the next leader, and we're going to make an announcement, but you really won't assume full authority for 10 years.
That's a huge amount of time.
It is. And, I had already been there 11 years, or by that time it was probably 8, because I stayed another few years. So it was about 8 or 9 years. I had already been there. And Annie, when they put it like that, I really said, I need to think about this. I need to pray about this. So I kind of took some time, thought about it, prayed about it, and came to the point where I said, no way, this is not me. So now I'm going to tell them no, and fully expecting that they might say, well, you're done. You need to get out of here then.
Mm-hmm.
And I was ready for it, but I was scared. And I think that a lot of people can relate because they want to go in their dream job, but at that point, they really don't know what they would do full time.
So did you, by that time, did you already know what your dream job could be? Or you were still trying to understand?
Yeah, I was still trying to understand. And here's what I say, Annie. I'll say 6 words and then I'll explain why they're very important. It's actually a process. Clarity produces competence. And I'll say all the words and then I'll explain.
Mm-hmm.
Clarity, competence, confidence, influence, impact, income. Now, I call that the deeper path payoff. I'll explain what it means. Many people that your listeners, which, by the way, they're great. I look at you got 39 reviews, so congrats to you. You just started. And if you're listening to this podcast and you haven't reviewed it yet, I'm going to review it right afterwards because Annie's great, but you need to do that.
Thank you. Thanks.
No, it's great. It's great. We got to show our support to people that are doing good things. So, Annie, what I mean by this is that many of your listeners say they have an income problem.
Mm-hmm.
If you just had more income. No. They have a clarity problem. Here's what I mean. Clarity's always where it starts. People will not buy from you. They will not buy your products and services unless you're clear. Let me give you an example. If everybody is, quote, a drive-through restaurant, let's assume you probably have perfect food in Armenia.
Yeah, we do.
Do you have drive-through restaurants or no?
No, because we like to sit and eat properly.
See, that's great. I love it. That's why whenever I do international podcasts, I'm always connecting and making sure there's cultural connections. Well, in America, we do food wrong. Okay, so we have these things called drive-through restaurants where you pull up to the drive-through restaurant and you basically talk to the speaker and you say what you want, and then you pay the fee and then you get your food at the drive-through window. Well, I use this example, Annie, within entrepreneurship and business, and here's what I mean. Everyone is quote, a drive-through restaurant. What do I mean by that? I mean that they're offering a product or a service.
Mm-hmm.
So people come up to them and they say, hey, I've heard great things about you, Annie. My friends told me I should work with you. They've said you're great. What do you serve? And if you say, I'm not sure. And then if they say, well, how much do you charge? And you say, I don't know. Do you think anyone's going to eat at that drive-through restaurant if the restaurant doesn't know what they serve or how much they charge?
Yeah, absolutely not.
No, exactly. You're going to keep driving through. The problem is, Annie, that most entrepreneurs, most dream jobbers that want to go pro, they're like that. People pull up to them and they say, I've heard good things about you. I've heard your podcast. I've heard your blogs. I've met people who've worked with you. What can I hire you for? And they hem and they haw and they're like, I'll help you get better. Well, what does that mean? You know, I'll help you achieve your dream. Well, great. Show me how. I'm not really sure. We'll just coach. See, the problem is that people sniff that out right away and they say, if that person doesn't know where they're going, why am I going to pay to follow them?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm kind of recalling several, people like that.
Exactly. Exactly. And I joke with myself. I'm bald, Annie, and I have a girl's name in America. So nobody's paying me because I look good. Okay. So that means that I better know what I have to offer. So once I got clear, Annie, on what I have to offer, clarity produces competence. And people say, oh, this person's clear and they know what they're good at. Guess what? Now you can be confident about yourself. See? And people then see somebody who knows where they're going. They know what they're good at. They know they're good. And then they say, I'm going to be influenced by this person. And then they start listening to this person. And then they get impacted by the person. And then they pay income. That's how it always works. Clarity, competence, confidence, influence, impact, income. And that's the exact story that helped me understand what I was good at. And I have a funny story if you want me to tell that.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Because I know you're into writing and correct?
Yes, me and my listeners as well.
Exactly. Well, they'll love this thing. Okay. So I went to this big time conference and I was very out of my league. Everyone in there was wearing suits and looked professional and they looked like they had everything perfect. And then there's me who is basically saying, I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm totally out of my league. And I think people can relate. Right? So I walk into this conference and I sit at this table and the funniest thing in the world, they all begin talking about books and they say, I want to write a book. And they start saying, how do you write a book? Well, I don't know. I think you need an agent. Well, do you just start writing the book? Do you get a proposal? And I'll tell you what, Annie, I'm like sitting there and I'm like, oh, I know this. Because at that point in my life, even though I was in my day job, I had written 4 published books, but I hadn't learned yet how to really market them. So they were books, but they hadn't gone anywhere really. And now my last 3 books have done very well because I kind of understand that system now. But back then I wasn't very clear on how to market them. I just knew how to write them. So I'm sitting there at that table and I say, well, if you get an agent, they're going to take 15% of your contract. And they're like, really? and I said, and you never want to start just writing your book. You want to start with a proposal. And they're like, really? and here's what I say. I say, show up, build up. Okay. So in other words, I wasn't focused on, oh, my insecurities. I don't know what to say. They're going to think I'm an imposter. No. I showed up, build up, and I showed up serving. And eventually, after about 20 minutes, these people said, where are you getting this stuff from? And I said, well, I've written a few books. And they said, really? Do you have? And I said, well, I do have one. I have one right here in my backpack. So I pulled it out. And it was like I was showing them like gold or something, because they're like, whoa. And I said, yeah, if you guys have any questions, I'll totally help you out. And it's interesting because people started gathering around. And then during the lunch break, other people told other people at the conference, you need to talk to this guy, Kary, because he can help you write your book. So again, Annie, I'm making all this stuff up like that day, but that night I go back to my hotel room and I do what's called a one sheet. I always train my clients now to create a one sheet. A one sheet is a who, what, when, where, why, and how for your product or your service.
Mm-hmm.
And you know from reading Day Job to Dream Job book, I always talk about market before you manufacture.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yes, exactly. And that's what many, many people do wrong because they do the other way around.
Exactly. So then the point is that, Annie, I'm sitting there up in my hotel room and I say, you know what? I know I've never coached anyone how to write a book yet, but if I did, what would I call it? Who would it be for? Where would I do it online? Why would I do it? And how would I do it? And just literally maybe 3 sentences with each question. Who, what, when, where, why, how. And I wrote it out. I didn't write it out for other people. I wrote it out for me. And that's very important. A lot of times we think clarity is for others. It's really for you. Because if you broadcast an unclear signal, it repels people. But if you broadcast a clear signal, you attract people. So the next day, I go downstairs to the conference, and I'm ready, Annie. I'm like ready. I say to myself, if somebody comes up to you and asks you a question, you market before you manufacture. So sure enough, I get my breakfast, I sit down, and 2 people come up to me and they say, hey, I've been thinking, yesterday you really sound like you know a lot about books. You've done it. What do you charge? And can you help me?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, absolutely. I have something called an author coaching program. And I'm making all this up, Annie. And I say, it's 10 sessions. It's $9.97. And, here's what we're going to do in each session. And it's going to happen over Skype. And it's going to help you out with your book proposal. And they said, I'm in.
Oh,
and,
great.
oh, yeah. And Annie, I'll tell you what, your listeners can have this same experience because here's what I know. You are amazing. You have a podcast and 95% of the world would say to Annie, I can't believe it. How did you do this podcast? And you would probably say, well, it took a little while, but it's easy.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Most people don't realize their guru status. They think that everyone else is good at what they're good at because it's easy to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does that make sense? So the point is this, Annie. The point is that if your listeners can identify and say, what's something that at least 3 people have asked me how to do? It could be how to bake a cake. It could be how to find a babysitter. It could be how to pick out the right car tires. I'm serious. Anything that comes easy to you, if at least 3 people have asked you how to do it, that illustrates, number 1, there's a need.
Mm-hmm.
These people need to know. And the fact that there's a need means that there's clients. The fact that they asked you means that they see you as a guru even before you see yourself as a guru.
Mm-hmm.
You see?
Yeah.
And the fact that they asked you how to do it, if you can provide what I call this the Jimmy Dean sausage approach. Right? Now this is going to have to translate culturally, but let me explain. We have these crazy stores in America where they give you, like a free sample of something.
Uh-huh.
And I know that, do they do this in Armenia, like food or something like that?
Yeah, sampling in supermarkets, yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about this, Annie. Have you ever walked into a supermarket and got a sample and then you liked it so much that you did what?
Well, if you like it, you end up purchasing it.
Exactly. This is the way that I built my business so that I was able to get enough income to then go pro. What I did, Annie, is I set up free samples.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what does that mean? It could be a podcast. A podcast is breadcrumbs to get you back to the main dish. And the main dish is Annie Alexander's products and services. Her podcast is just the breadcrumbs to get you to the main dish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does this make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I see what you mean.
And if people can trace the breadcrumbs back to you and say, I know Annie, I like Annie, I trust her, and I want more, then if you have a very clear product or service that is built around a framework is just simple steps that lead you to an ultimate outcome. And Annie, that's what you can do to build your business. That's what I did to build my business, is I gave away free, serve, but it always led people back and said, this is free, and if you like it, there's more. Mm-hmm. I'm here to serve you either way, but I can't take you to the next level unless you engage in a deeper way.
Okay, I understand. And since writers are quite impatient people, I would like you to tell, you were doing this parallel to your day job still, right? You didn't leave it yet.
No, what I did is I began to build up my clarity, competence, confidence, influence, impact, and then the income started to come in. And because my job situation kind of pushed me to the point where I had to make a decision, I had that plan in the background. I say that you go from prison to plan to payoff. And
mm-hmm.
most people, they want to go from prison to payoff. Mm-hmm. And they want to forget the plan, but the plan is what the book's about. The plan takes you through 9 steps that will help you literally craft your own dream job or plan.
Yeah, that's exactly why I was asking, because many people think that, it's just today it's very popular. If you're disciplined enough and you're able to write one book, you will make lots of money, and you just sign your resignation, go home and start writing that book. But, I want people to realize that it does take time and lots of work. So if you have really unrealistic expectations, then, this resignation and leaving the job will not lead you to freedom. Actually, it will lead you to looking for yet another job a while later. I left and I came home and I started writing a book. But I did that because I knew that I had a husband who could support me and I had a backup. And also I was in a situation when I was too stressed and I had too much overtime, and I knew that, until I back up and get out of that situation, I would never be able to write anything. So, if I couldn't do things parallel. That's the problem. But it's absolutely not what I'm recommending. And I just recommend that they follow your plan because it's less emotional, and it reduces the risks, and it also reduces disappointment.
I think that's very wise what you just said. There are certain people that literally are sick, they're stressed, they're in a toxic environment. And in those situations, it's important to not take the abuse and to get out. I think you said another great point, which is that you had a husband who was able to kind of support financially some of the transition. So excellent. Very good perspective. Mine was a little bit different, a little bit more severe, where I had 3 kids. I'm the main breadwinner, a wife, mortgage. And so I knew for me, I got one shot. I better make this thing work. And so, you read the book, and in the book, I show how I needed to make it happen. And I'm thankful to God and my team. And it's been tremendous. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, no, I'm really. I found out about you through a person we both know, and quite accidentally a few days ago, just before your book launch actually, and it was amazing how when I looked through and went to the book page and then went through the other materials and the Facebook group, etc. It kind of it it brought the whole picture, and I really related, and I said, oh, this is for me. So that's why I would like to go back to the book once again, and since it's a very good example of a book launch, and it was quite dynamic and successful, I would like you to share a bit about how you planned and implemented the launch of the book for the listeners.
Sure. Well, the funny thing is a couple quick things. Number one, when the day the book launched, we already had 42 five-star reviews. And so that is a huge sign that says I didn't wait until the book came out before I started launching it. Mm-hmm. Meaning that I started months before the book came out. And I did start with a launch team. And instead of viewing this launch team as people that will serve me, I created a launch team that I would serve. And so I had several calls, probably about once or twice a month, where I basically pulled back the curtain and said, okay, in your own book launch, pay attention, because here's why I'm doing this. And then I taught, because you got to remember, this is my 6th book. And I've also helped many others launch their books. I've ghostwritten, I've collaborated. And so, I'm 37, but my first traditionally published book came out 10 years ago. So I probably did everything wrong, so I can tell people what not to do. And with this book launch, Annie, I said, you know what? I'm going to start this thing with a heart to serve. And our launch team, I forget, but it's, I think, something like 185 people now. And technically, Annie, we haven't even started our launch week. Our launch week starts Sunday, August 17th.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And here's why I did that. Because in past launches, I mean, you're right, the book came out on August 5th. But you can't let Amazon or any other publisher or distributor tell you how to run your business. Because in the past, what I've done is I've waited for Amazon's date, and I had all this momentum, and then Amazon said, out of stock. And then you're shocked, because now you have all these things planned and set in motion, but you're waiting on Amazon, and they basically ruined your launch. Mm-hmm. And so what I did this time is I said, okay, fine. August 1st, the book's coming out. That means that July 1st, my publisher is going to give me advanced reader copies. We call these usually ARCs, advanced reader copies. And I'm going to get them out to my high-profile clients free of charge. I'm going to put in there a very kind, edifying letter, and I'm going to be a giver. And I basically created a whole system that anyone listening to your podcast can get in free. Like, I don't know when you're going to release this, but even if you release it in a while, if you find out Day Job to Dream Job book launch team on Facebook, we have literally mapped out everything that we've done and archived it. Mm-hmm. And it is a system. It involves tweets. It involves pictures. It involves podcasts. It involves special days where each day in your book launch you have. So we have it all starts with P. Okay, we have profile pick day, where on a certain day, everyone on the launch team puts up as their profile pick something related to the book. Okay, then we have party day, where everybody invites people to the launch party, which is August 21st. And here's what I'm doing. I'm doing an online launch party. You go to dayjobtodreamjob.com/party, and you can see that even in my book launch, see, most people do online book launches and they say, it's about me, it's about my book, check it out, buy copies. No. This launch party is all about my dream job mentors. So now I'm having Chris Brogan, who I think you just interviewed, right? Mm-hmm. Chris Brogan, Dan Miller, Chris Gilliball, Robert D. Smith, Mark Sanborn. All my dream job mentors are coming on the phone, and I'm going to serve them and add value to them and edify them. And exposed my tribe to them, and they've each donated a very significant prize. And the grand prize is 2 tickets to Shawshank Redemption anniversary. So you can tell everything I'm doing is very unorthodox. It's counterintuitive. It's like, okay, you have a party, but you're not the guest of honor. The people are the guest of honor and your mentors. But everything, Annie, that I do is because I've tried out and I've found out what doesn't work.
Yeah, I think it's really great because, we hear the same advices everywhere. And at some point, maybe in the beginning, those things worked much better because the people who tried it were the first one to try. And now, more people are doing the same thing, less effective or less, attractive it gets. So, these kind of things which are non-traditional and people are not used to that, I think they're really, really great because those are the ones which are just starting. And, it's like you're doing a pioneer job of showing how else things can be done.
That's right. And it is fun. And I think you're on the launch team, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is a blast, and I am super excited, and you're seeing this firsthand.
Yeah, my only problem is the time difference because usually you're doing your calls when we are 4 a.m. over here. So.
But we record them. Go into our password protected link, and every call has been recorded, so you have it.
Okay.
When you're part of the team, we're going to turn this whole thing into a system because that's what you should do. When you're a dream jobber, you should turn everything you do into a system and then monetize it because that's just smart. It makes you want to do better. It makes you do it more bigger, but then it helps serve people because people are going to ask you, Annie. They're going to say, a month from now, people are going to email me and say, "Hey, I saw you did that launch. I wasn't able to be part of it. How'd you do it?" And now what I can say is, "Awesome. Here it is. It's a download, and it's a whole system, and it's X amount of dollars or whatever." But when you join the launch team, you get it all free.
Yeah, a very good approach. And vulnerable thing for our writers is usually the lack of big budgets. So did it cost lots of money to have this kind of launch?
It did not. Basically, it took a lot of work. So it's not for the author who says, I'm just going to write a check and expect everyone to do everything. This is something that I've said, I'm going to do something toward it every day for probably, 3 months. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, Annie, I teach that you don't just write a book, you create a business around every single book. Mm-hmm. So if it was just for a book, I would not say it's worth it. It wouldn't be worth it.
Yeah.
But what I do is I have a dream job boot camp.
Yeah.
And I have a business tied to the book so that when the book's done, the money continues and the impact and the influence.
Well, those are the times when, I regret that I'm into fiction because with nonfiction, it's so easy to tie it to your business.
Yeah.
With fiction, it's a bit tricky. You can't really do so many things like with nonfiction books, and it has its limitations.
Well, let's talk about that. Can we talk about that really quick?
Absolutely. I would love to.
Because you like podcasts, you say?
Yeah.
You like podcasts, you like fiction, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. So people, Annie, believe it or not, people love you and want to work with you. And if you can understand that your time is worth money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if people want access to you, like, what does this mean? Writers coaching group, where you take 5 writers and they pay you whatever, $500 for 5 sessions, and you walk them through how to develop a fiction book proposal or how to develop your characters. See, you can take your skill and you can monetize it. So I agree with you but I disagree with you, and in a kind way.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know what
no,
I'm saying?
I see what you mean. It's just that the scale is a bit different, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, it's a bit more limited than with nonfiction.
Yeah.
Although, you know, I guess if we dig to it, we also may come up with some new and pioneer ideas as well. Who knows? One day.
I think so.
You mentioned that you've been traditionally published as well.
Yes.
And so you can compare the traditional and self-publishing routes. Can you highlight the main differences and which one you prefer and why?
Yeah. So it depends what people want to do with their writing. If people say, I really, really want to get traditionally published because it's essential for credibility, I would challenge that, because that's kind of the old reason why. And I would say, look at Tim Ferriss in his last book, how he turned down traditional publishers and went with Amazon. I would say, look at Seth Godin. I would say, there are many examples today of people that turn down the, quote, credibility motivation in order to be published, self-published, or some other collaborative form of publishing. So personally, I don't think we need traditional publishers as much as we did in the past. Mm-hmm. Some of my mentors would argue otherwise. They would say, look, there still is some filtering that traditional publishers do. I just think it slows the process. Now you're dependent on finding an agent. Now the agent has to be sold on your book. They have to really buy into you. They'll probably revise it a bunch, and then they'll shop it around. The moment they shop it around, they have probably 2 months, the publishers, before they even offer you a contract. Then it takes about 12 months before your book's in print. Hey, I think our mutual friend, Jared Easley, published his book Friday last week. Mm-hmm. And it's out this Friday.
Yes.
In other words, he wrote it probably in 1 week or so.
Yeah, I was surprised and amazed because just a few days ago he sent me a few chapters to just to go through and provide feedback. And then I saw the book cover and the announcement that it's coming out just in a couple of days. I was like, just a few days ago I was reading a few chapters and you were just started writing the book. It was amazing.
And you know what? Jared is motivated for a certain reason, because a big conference that he's part of is coming this weekend, and it makes sense for that reason. See, I can't give an answer for everybody, because certain people will want the expertise, because there is still a stereotype that if you don't do your book right, oh, that's a self-published book. The reason why that term is used is because so many self-published books don't put in the checks and balances so that it looks like a good book. That's the important part. I have a program called Author Academy Elite, which is a mentoring program. It actually gets you a book. It gets you on stage at our live event. I mean, it's a very awesome, intensive author program.
Yeah, we'll have to put the link in the show notes for that.
Yeah, but that's that's for the type of person who says, you know what, I really want this to be the center of the plate for my business, and I'm going to build other products around it, and this is what I'm going to do. Jared, in my opinion, his book is probably awesome. I love the guy. He's unbelievable. Anything he does is top notch. I don't know if his book is going to be the center of his business, or is it going to be, one product in his suite. And so that's why I really encourage, when I start with people, I coach them through all this thinking, because it's better to know now before you get into it than starting putting things together and kind of saying, oh, I hope this works. If you're going to build a house, get a blueprint and then build it, rather than just starting adding rooms here and there.
So can we conclude in general terms that the main purpose is to find out more about you, to be clear about what you want, and then you will already know which approach is best for you?
Yeah. I have coached over 400 people through a process called the Deeper Path. I've hinted a lot about it today, but I've given a lot of it away as far as the framework goes. But yes, way too many people think that they're just going to put a sign on the street and say, "Hey, I'm a pro. Come to my store." And the problem is they don't know. They don't have the clarity. And so what's going to happen? I say it like this, Annie. If you go to, and oh my gosh, I see this all the time. Okay, I can look at somebody's Facebook page or Twitter or LinkedIn, and I can tell if they are a dream jobber or if they're making it up. And here's what I mean. If you go into a town and you see somebody's sign that says ski instructor, gardener, school teacher, and dentist, are you going to go to that person? You're not going to go to that person to fix your teeth. You go to somebody's store and it just says dentist. Are you going to go to that person? Absolutely. Why? Because it's clarity. So in my coaching, Annie, I say that you need your value proposition statement. Can I read mine in conclusion just so people can see an example of one that's a bullet? Okay.
Absolutely.
So here's what I say.
Go ahead.
I'm an author, coach, and speaker who helps the disoriented, discouraged, and disengaged discover who they are, why they're here, and where they're going so they can become a soul on fire and share their message with the world. Now, that statement, Annie, it sounds like a lot's there. I have 4 six-figure businesses that are in each one of those statements. Who they are, your secret name, why they're here, the deeper path, where they're going, Dream Job Boot Camp, so that they can share their message with the world, Author Academy Elite. Like, this is the stuff I teach people that if you are clear about your value proposition statement and then tie products and services to it, you're going to go pro. It's just a matter of time.
Okay, I see. And the very last question, and I'm leaving you alone, is we spoke a lot about people who are not yet clear and don't have the exact plan of what they want to do. So they want to write, but they are not really clear how, what, and what should their next steps be. Let's say there is someone who's got to the stage that he's clear enough what he wants and he imagines his dream job and he has clarity and he has things in mind already, but he's still working in his full-time job. What should be the very first steps to start actually acting? So
you read Day Job to Dream Job. So in the book I give 9 steps, and I would say start with the first step, which is design your story. Because what's going to happen, Annie, is that your story is going to be the bedrock for your business. You might say, what in the world? I don't get that. You're telling me a story is going to help people buy from me? Absolutely. Jillian Michaels, that fitness gal, we have a show called The Biggest Loser in America. Jillian Michaels has a story. Yeah. She's positioned that, and it's turned into a business. Crazy thing, Robin Williams just passed away, I use him as an example, that he has a story, and he positioned it. You look at any successful person, behind them is a story that they positioned well, and they turn it into a business. Why? Because people don't buy you, they buy the belief. And if you just come out there and say, hey, I'm going to sell you something, nobody's going to buy anything from you. But if you say, hey, I was stuck, and here's where I was stuck, and here's where I am today, and here's the steps that I took to get there, and it's in a process, and I'll teach you how to do it, that is the sign, whether it's how to braid hair, how to bake a cake, how to write a book, how to build a house. This is how we think. We want a solution to a problem because we're stuck, and we want to buy it from someone who can get us results. And that's exactly the first step, that they need to understand that their story is a critical piece of the puzzle.
Well, that was a really good news because I presume that, writers are supposed to be a good storytellers. So, at least they should know that the first step should be relatively
Yes,
easy
your clients are primed and ready to go. They just need to realize that the book's not going to solve their life. It's a tool to lead people into a deeper relationship in their business.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for the interesting conversation. This time it was a bit different and it wasn't really about writing or self-publishing, but I think it was very important because I do believe that most of my listeners are not yet professional writers who are doing that full time. And this transition and everything we spoke about is very crucial for them because that is the period and that is the point which will be able to turn all their life around and get them where
exactly. Well, you're doing great things, Annie, and all your listeners need to go review your podcast right now.
Thank you. Thanks
Awesome.
a lot. Thank you. Well, that was it for today. I really hope that this interview was useful and helped you make sure that your transition from your day job to dream job will be smooth, well planned, and successful. Take care. Have a nice day. Meet you in the next episode.